Good morning, everyone. I am going to present parts of the article written by the proponent of this theory, Connectivism, a Learning Theory for the Digital Age. It was published in January 2005. Okay, let me show you the photo of George Siemens several years ago when he wrote this article. He was an instructor at Red River College in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. He is fascinated with technology to transform learning and is convinced that existing educational perspectives need to be revised to meet the needs of today's students. George Siemens is the author and editor of the eLearnSpace website at www.elearnspace.org. It offers rich resources on e-learning. Here he is today. So from instructor, then to professor now. George Siemens is currently affiliated with the University of South Australia. He continues to be actively involved in research related to learning analytics, artificial intelligence in education, and human cognition. His recent work includes publications and conference presentations on topics such as synthetic data, fairness, and collaborative problem solving using learning analytics. So as the saying goes, George Siemens aged like a fine wine. Diba? From an instructor to a professor. All right, let's talk about first behaviorism, cognitism, and constructivism. These are the three broad learning theories most often utilized in the creation of instructional environments. These theories, however, were developed in a time when learning was not impacted through technology. Over the last 20 years, technology has reorganized how we live, how we communicate, and how we learn. Learning needs and theories that describe learning principles and processes should be reflective of underlying social environments. I will not explain it further or more because it was already presented by the previous reporter. As we all know, our teaching strategies that we are applying today are still anchored to these theories. Okay, one of the most persuasive factors is the shrinking half-life of knowledge. The half-life of knowledge is the period from when knowledge is gained to when it becomes obsolete. Half of what is known today was not known for 10 years ago. Okay? The amount of knowledge in the world has doubled in the past 10 years and is doubling every 18 months according to the American Society of Training and Documentation. To combat the shrinking half-life of knowledge, organizations have been forced to develop new methods of deploying instruction. So let me share you some significant trends in learning. The first one is many learners will move into a variety of different or possibly unrelated fields over the course of their lifetime. Number two, informal learning is a significant aspect of our learning experience. Formal education is no longer comprises the majority of our learning. Learning now occurs in a variety of ways, through communities of practice, personal networks, and through completion of work-related tasks. Learning, number three, is a continual process lasting for a lifetime. Learning and work-related activities are no longer separate. In many situations, they are the same. Technology is altering our brains. The tools we use define and shape our thinking. The organization and the individual are both learning organisms. Increased attention to knowledge management highlights the need for a theory that attempts to explain the link between individual and organizational learning. Many of the processes previously handled by learning theories can now be offloaded to or supported by technology. Know-how and know-what is being supplemented with know-where, or the understanding of where to find the knowledge needed. Let's have a brief background. Driscoll defines learning as a persisting change in human performance or performance potential, which must come about as a result of the learner's experience in interaction with the world. This definition encompasses many of the attributes commonly associated with behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism, namely, learning as a lasting change state, mental, physiological, brought about as a result of experiences and interactions with content or other people. All of these learning theories hold the notion that knowledge is an objective that is attainable through either reasoning or experiences. Behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism attempt to address how it is that a person learns, but there are some limitations of these theories. So some of the questions that to explore in relation to these learning theories and the impact of technology and new sciences on learning. The first one is what adjustments need to be made or need to made with learning theories when technology performs many of the cognitive operations previously performed by the learners. The next one, how can we continue to stay current in a rapidly evolving information ecology? How do learning theories address moments where performance is needed in the absence of complete understanding? Okay, let's look at chaos and network. Actually, these are the two alternative theories. Okay. When I was working with the presentation, these are the theories that are actually unfamiliar to me. So when I research it, these chaos and network are mathematics related. Okay? So chaos theory is a branch of mathematics and physics that studies complex systems that appear to be disordered but are actually governed by underlying patterns and deterministic laws. These systems are highly sensitive to initial conditions, meaning small changes can lead to vastly different outcomes, often referred to as the butterfly effect. I remembered this movie, Butterfly Effect. The title is The Butterfly Effect. Now, what do we mean by the butterfly effect? The term was popularized by meteorologist Edward Lorenz in 1960s. Wait. While studying weather prediction models, he discovered that small rounding errors in his computer simulations led to dramatically different weather forecasts. This demonstrated that even minute differences in starting conditions can lead to unpredictability in complex systems. So here are the examples of the butterfly effect related to chaos theory. Okay? So number one is the weather systems. Since atmospheric conditions change constantly, even a tiny fluctuation like temperature differences or air pressure changes can alter long-term weather patterns. Number two, stock markets. Minor decision by an investor or a small piece of news can ripple through global markets, influencing stock prices worldwide. 'Di ba, nanonood tayo ng K-drama, 'pag namatay may scandal or namatay yung ano, yung CEO nila, nagkakaroon ng ano, ng changes sa ano nila, sa stock market. Either bababa o tataas yung ano, yung value. And then number three, ecosystems. The introduction or removal of a single species in an ecosystem can have widespread consequences on biodiversity. And number four, personal decisions. Small choices in life. Example, missing a bus or meeting a stranger can significantly change a person's future path. Okay? Diba? Pwedeng yung ano, mamimit mo na tao, pwedeng ah, you can pwedeng makatulong sa'yo for your future business or in any other aspects of your life. Okay. So, connectivism um, uh, is related to chaos and network. Connectivism integrates principles explored by chaos, network, complexity, and sub-organization theories. Let's talk about principles of connectivism. First one is learning happens through networks. Knowledge exists not just in individual minds but in external networks. These external networks are people, digital resources, and technology. Example, a programmer learns coding from YouTube tutorials, GitHub repositories, and discussion forums rather than from a single teacher. Next, technology is central to learning. Digital tools such as AI, search engines, social media help learners connect, process, and store knowledge. Example, a student uses ChatGPT, online courses, and LinkedIn groups to learn marketing strategies. Number three, knowledge is constantly evolving. In a rapidly changing world, what we know today might be outdated tomorrow. Example, AI technology changes frequently, requiring constant updates and new connections to stay informed. Next, learning is about connecting to the right sources. The ability to find, filter, and evaluate information is more important than memorization. Number five, example first. Example of number four, a journalist researching climate change gathers insights from scientific papers, Twitter experts, and TED Talks instead of relying on a single book. And number five, decisions are based on current and shifting knowledge. Since information is always growing, learning is a lifelong adaptive process. Example, a cybersecurity expert regularly updates their knowledge through online courses, webinars, and industry news. Why is connectivism important? Uh, Personally, connectivism, the principles of connectivism are beneficial to me because I use it uh, as a teacher, as a student, and as a mom of three because I can get so much information through uh, different social media networks and other platforms for my children's projects and outputs, activities in school. So anyway, so here are the importance of connectivism. It prepares learners for the digital world. It helps students navigate and filter massive amounts of information. The next one, it encourages lifelong learning. Learning doesn't stop after formal education and it continues through networks. Number three, promotes collaboration. Learning is more effective when shared with communities and experts. And the last one is enhances its adaptability. In a fast-changing world, staying connected to the right sources is crucial. So let me share you the real-world applications of connectivism. The first one is MOOCs and online courses, learning through platforms like Coursera, Udemy, Khan Academy. By the way, MOOCs stand for Massive Open Online Courses. These are online courses designed for a large-scale participation and open access by the internet. MOOCs provide learning materials such as video lectures, readings, assignments, and discussion forums, often offered by universities and organizations. They can be either free or paid with optional certificates of completion. So these are the key features of MOOCs. In Massive, open to a large number of learners worldwide. And open, many courses are free and accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Okay. So here are the popular MOOC platforms. Yun nga, I mentioned it earlier, Coursera by the Stanford professors, EDX by Harvard and MIT, Udacity focuses on tech and career skills, Future Learn, and then Khan Academy for K-12 and general education. MOOCs have transformed education by making high-quality learning resources available to millions worldwide, often with contributions from top universities and industry leaders. Another example is social media learning. Following industry leaders on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook groups. The next one is collaborative platforms, sharing knowledge through Google Docs, Slack, Discord, and Zoom. So we can consider our Teams, Microsoft Teams as collaborative platforms. We are using Teams in school and also here in TUP. And the next one is AI-powered learning. Yan. Using ChatGPT, Duolingo, my daughter who is na grade 9, grade 9, grade 3 students sometimes visit Duolingo and personalized learning algorithms to enhance education. And the last one is professional networks, engaging with experts on ResearchGate, GitHub, and academic forums. Okay, for our conclusion, connectivism presents a model of learning that acknowledges the tectonic shifts in society where learning is no longer an internal individualistic activity. How people work and function is altered when new tools are utilized. Connectivism provides insight into learning skills and tasks and needed for learners to flourish in a digital era. So here are my references, and these references are also used by George Siemens. That's all for connectivism. I hope you learned something. Thank you.